Hi there. A couple of days ago, I did one of my simple introspection spiritual exercises. Uh, I just simply said the four holy words to begin, which is "I love you, God," and then I just became aware of my breath and followed my breath into a kind of silence. And during this silence, I came up with a few ideas or thoughts. It's a bit like what the Quakers, the Society of Friends, do. They just introspect for an hour or so, and they just see whatever information is given to them, if any, by the Holy Spirit. I don't take an hour to do that. I just I just do literally 5 minutes a day of this exercise anyway, and but I was led along five different paths of thought. Well, the one at the top actually was after the session, but the others occurred during the session, and um, and some of them are fairly obvious. I had an intense feeling of longing, and of longing for the Godhead. Um, it's a sort of sense of longing which is at first dispersed. It's just a general sense of longing, of what I call here something which is other than self. And then it becomes focused on a longing for the power called God, which is other than self. And that was very, very intense. But in a sense, I was expecting that to happen because I've had that happen to me before, where I've picked up a sense of longing before on other occasions of doing a spiritual exercise, and bearing in mind that all the things that we desire, basically, all they all melt down into one desire, which is a desire for God. So and for Godhead. And so all the things that we externalize, we want bags and cars and, computer software and computers and things like that. They're basically all just as a way of sort of plastering over the wall, and that wall is a wall of longing. And So we think we desire material objects and power, worldly power, but in fact, what we're really doing is desiring God, and that was I mean, I read about that somewhere, and it was a revelation at the time. And it seems that if you look at it from a metaphysical point of view, that would certainly be an interesting theory, that it's basically the soul wanting to be in some way united with or aligned with, or even become the Godhead. And that's what you really, really want to happen, despite all the things that you think you want in this world. And so then we come on to this other one, which is an interesting. It's like a feeling of being on the verge of going home, so that I don't know, you kind of turn 180 degrees and go back home. So it's a sense of homecoming. So you're traveling along, and then you just go back 180 degrees. You turn around and go back home, and that is an immensely sort of feeling of relief, I suppose, and feeling of anticipation of going home. And I mean, ordinarily people feel this very strongly, that people have been away from home for a good long while, and you have this kind of powerful sense of relief and of happiness of actually just going back to your roots, as it were, going back to your the place where you were born, even. So, as I think Bob Marley said, you've got to know your roots, and the sense of going back to your roots, not just physically, but I mean spiritually or mentally or in his case, culturally, you're going back to your roots, which lie, of course, in Abyssinia, and so very powerful sense, and of course, taken metaphorically. The meaning here is going home, returning to Godhead after having been away for so many millions of years and over so many dimensions and all the worlds of the Demiurge, and you've travelled through all the worlds of Demiurge, and now some part of you, the soul part of you, is ascending back from whence it came, and that was a powerful feeling. And then this is an interesting one. Yeah. It's not as interesting as the next one, but it's interesting. Something frivolous. A desire to get up and watch some silly thing on TV, or play a silly computer game or something. Go into some kind of escapism, a sort of popular escapism that everybody goes into. And this brings me on to an issue which somebody raised with me, that quoting a Hindu saying that there is no mukti without bhukti. In other words, you can't have enlightenment without a connection to the earth, and to pleasure, and to conscious enjoyment, and joyousness. And I think the conscious part is what's the key word here, because you could just enjoy things in a superficial way, or just because you're high and drunk, which is not really conscious enjoyment. But if you're in a joyous mood or an elated mood and you're not high or drunk, then this is something to be savoured consciously as well. I mean, it could be anything that you might enjoy, which isn't exactly, altering your state of consciousness through, I don't know, psilocybin or THC or whatever. This is something you're just as yourself, but you're enjoying life, or you're having a moment of intense pleasure, even frivolous pleasure. You're just, I don't know, chatting someone up, or doing what people do in that kind of situation. If you're a pro-social sort of person, a people person, you might do that, or sort of badinage, or just joking around, just to relieve the tension, of and the stresses of living in the worlds of the demiurge. So humour is quite important, I think, in Gnosticism. Otherwise, I think you do descend into a kind of a life-hating Gnosticism, where and you hate any relationships, and you hate being in relationship, in various levels of relationship with the universe, and you begin to kind of descend into what the Thelema calls Black Brotherhood of 89, and they're rather grim people, because they want people never to touch each other. They want social distancing. They want people to live in little boxes and never see anybody. They want you to be isolated, but not in a good way, not in an ascetic way, because an ascetic isolation is in fact connection to the whole universe, which you develop through a meditation. Now, I'm talking about a kind of isolation where it's nothing but you, and what you desire, and power, basically. So it's a sort of grim kind of hatred of life itself, which is something that Gnostics could fall into quite easily, because they take sort of a grim view of the finite worlds, and the worlds of the demiurge. Whereas, in fact, I think you should lightly lampoon the demiurge and all his schemes, and you should have humility to realize that you're not above the laws of nature. You're not above the laws of society. You're not even above the laws of the human condition, even though you're working on the human condition consciously through your meditation. You're not above them, and you want cream cakes like anybody else, and so don't get all holier than thou about all this. I am a mea culpa, basically. You're no better than anybody else as a Gnostic. So there's that's kind of an interesting part of of the results of my contemplation. And then finally we come on to this. This is really interesting. I had a sort of vision of a woodland or a tree actually, or any kind of object. You take an object, and the object is in three dimensions, obviously, and you're perceiving it. But then you become aware that there is something behind the object which you can't perceive, which is, like the dark side of the moon, as it were. It's the face of an object which is turned away from you, and you can't perceive it. And then what happens is that, well, you could fantasize about what's there, but that wouldn't be that's not what I mean, and that's quite a tricky thing to do because you could start sort of seeing monsters where there aren't any and getting rather paranoid. Now, what I'm talking about is a profound sense of mystery. You don't know what's behind the object, except there's an intense feeling of mystery, and which almost has a sort of not a sentimental character, but I don't know, a very powerful, alluring. You want to find out what's there, but in order to do that, you'd have to go behind the object, which for some reason you can't do. So all you can do is you can't even project your imagination behind the object because that would be a bit dangerous. All you can actually do is perceive the mystery of something that you cannot perceive because you're in no position to perceive it, you see. So you see the object and you see everything in front of you, but then there's this thing behind, there's this kingdom of shadows, as it were, behind every object. And within every object, there's a sort of mystery, a profound mystery. And perhaps, it's like the mystery of the resurrection in Christianity. I mean, it's a mystery. And people say, well, Christ was resurrected on the third day, but those words don't sort of, and what do they mean? They don't mean anything. I could say gobbedy, 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 gog. And yet, obviously, the resurrection of Jesus Christ has more meaning than that, than just nonsense words. But it sort of indicates or signposts something, a mystery so profound that you can't go there. You can't even imagine resurrection. You can't imagine it. You can't project your imagination to it. All you're left with is this profound mystery, and yet some part of you actually is attuned to this mystery and knows exactly what this mystery is. And it's not a secret at all to the part of you which can penetrate the veil of secrecy surrounding the miraculous resurrection and the narrative attached to the resurrection of Christ. So, so all you've got is this kind of strange sense of mystery and admiration and wonder, I suppose. And things don't have to make sense. You just look at everything and it is as it is, or the resurrection is as it is. You're not trying to sort of, I don't know, explain it in scientific terms or in quantum mechanics terms. The mind always wants to explain everything. It doesn't like loose ends. But here we got a big loose end of the resurrection, and a great mystery and a great miracle. And you sort of know what the words mean, but at the same time you don't really know what the words mean. I'm probably talking absolute gibberish here, so I'll shut up about that. And then finally, so this came after the session when I opened my eyes. There's a profound sort of gratitude for these mysteries, which at the time seemed very profound. I mean, perhaps now in the cold light of logic. They're not too interesting really, but at the time they were very interesting and had a great emotional charge attached to these findings, if you like, of my meditation. But the point about all this is that, you don't have these experiences and just walk away from them. I think it's a good idea to write things down in a little booklet, things that you've actually thought of during your contemplation, and perhaps sometimes refer to them, I mean, I'm not saying that you sit down and say, right now I'm going to meditate on the fact that I can't. There's something mysterious behind the object, because you then go into lust of result. You then be pushing it, and trying to sort of wrestle the experience from your subconscious, which I don't think the subconscious would be very, very happy about. So I'm not saying that you say, well, I'm going to meditate on frivolity, or I'm going to meditate on homecoming, or I'm going to meditate on that, and make it a sort of object of it, of meditation. I'm just saying that you would look at these, you would write these results down, and sometimes you'd refer to them, just so that you consciously didn't forget about all these experiences that you have during meditation or contemplation. And of course, people will then start saying, well, what's the difference between contemplation and meditation? I suppose in my scheme, there's not really a lot of difference at all, but they're sort of interchangeable terms as far as I'm concerned. But I realize there probably technically is a difference between contemplation and meditation, which probably someone will comment about under this video. But be that as it may, the point about this, the practical point to take away is the fact that it sometimes is very, very good, if not essential or vital, to keep a record of your experiences and your thoughts that arise, because they are thoughts which may come as a result of your coalescence, of some part of your consciousness coalescing with the Holy Spirit, with the consciousness of Godhead. And these are things which are good to remember. Their emotions or experiences or thoughts, it is good to keep a record of. So in times of real trouble, when you don't feel like meditating for some reason, you can look in your little book, in your record, your diary, come across something which is interesting, some come across a sort of aphorism or observation that you made, and you think, oh yeah, homecoming, yes, a longing for Godhead, yes, that's I experienced that during meditation, and now I'm looking at the words, and they're kind of making sense to me at a time of great stress or great worry or something, and yes, I should be lighten up a bit and have a bit more fun in my life, and that would be good too. You read something about life should be go out and have a bit of frivolous fun, and look at humour, look at the power of humour, for example, and of course look at the power of humour to transcend the duality of this world, which it certainly does. There's humour seems to have a kind of transcendental quality about it as well. And I think Stefan Heuler makes that point in one of his lectures about humour and Gnosticism, and humour and spirituality generally, really, you've got to have a sort of twinkle in your eye. You've got to wear the world lightly, as a light sort of covering over your skin. And not get too bogged down, and not too sort of hating. You can't go into a hate fest of this world, because a hate fest is exactly what the demiurge wants you to indulge in, obviously, because it gets energy out of your hatred as much as it does out of your fear, and any strong emotion, obviously, because it's a psychic parasite. It wants to it's parasitic on your states of consciousness, on your emotions. On getting high and drunk, anything like that, it'll feed off, basically. So try to reduce its opportunity to feed on you as much as you possibly can, because the feeding process itself is a bit of a bothersome thing to experience, and leads to a lot of suffering and heartache and a world of pain generally, as if we haven't got enough pain to deal with ordinarily. Don't let the demiurge make your life even worse than it possibly is already. Which I say with a bit of a laugh and a bit of a twinkle, because the whole of life is a tragic comedy, really, isn't it? What is really going on, we have no idea. Anyway, so the upshot of this is keep a diary of your dreams, keep a diary of your of emotions that you experience during your meditation, or even visions and voices. Keep an eye on, keep a record of all these things, because it could help you in later life when you read back on them. And you might be surprised. You might sort of say to yourself, "Oh, wow." Because you might be feeling a bit down about yourself, and then you read what you've achieved through your diary, and you think, "Oh, right, I've actually experienced some pretty profound things during my time." Don't belittle. I shouldn't belittle myself and say, "Oh, I'm not being very spiritual at the moment," but I have had spiritual moments, and these spiritual moments are like rungs of a ladder, and I'm going up the ladder, putting my feet and hands on the rungs of my previous spiritual experiences. You see. So the power of the diary is the power of the blog, I suppose, as well. People obviously put their diaries online now and blog them, and of course that means that other people can also share in your past experiences, and also perhaps draw inspiration from them. So that's a kind of a good thing to do as well. So that's basically all that I've got to say on my past experiences during a meditation session, during an introspection session, as I might call it. And as I say, 5 minutes a day, and it's incredible what you can get from 5 minutes a day. I also don't really recommend doing it for too long, especially for beginners, because all sorts of strange things can start to happen when you push your mind beyond its limits, and things which are pretty nasty and disagreeable, and have absolutely nothing to do with spirituality, but everything to do with the demiurge and his agents taking the opportunity to really, put you over a slow grill, and they like their psyche. They like their psyches grilled well, and if they find somebody, doing hours of meditation and transcendental meditation and all that, they can take the opportunity to have a bit of a feast, and so try not to do that if you possibly can, unless you like that sort of thing, of course. Which I do immensely. No, that's a quotation from Top Hat there. Any of the one of my favourite movies of all time. Anyway, keep your diary. Keep doing your 5 minutes of contemplation or introspection or meditation or whatever you want to call it. Follow the path of the breath. Follow the breath as it takes you down the rabbit hole. But don't go too deep down into the rabbit hole. Just go where you feel most comfortable, and don't go too far into the silence, unless of course you're experienced in that kind of thing. Which case I suppose you can go as far as you ever can. But in fact, like Minecraft, the game Minecraft, there actually is, there is a depth. You don't go on digging in Minecraft. There is a place. You do come to the bottom of Minecraft, the game, and you do come to the limits of Minecraft eventually. And you have to be aware that however far meditation takes you, there will be a floor limit. And if you want to go beyond that into the truly transcendental, then that's an altogether different ball game, really, and that that is not something which you can get to. It's something which is granted to you as grace from the Holy Spirit, the true transcendence. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, thank you very much for listening to this little bit of a ramble, and I hope some of it can be of inspiration to you.